Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to What Do You Say Anime. I am your host, Peter. On today's episode, we're going to be doing a something a little different. I'm going to be doing my recap of the last 2 weeks that I had in Japan and kind of go over my thoughts and recommendations and experiences that I had doing a little bit of a group adventure along with a little bit of a solo adventure. So, want to do a recap. I know a lot of people who are interested in anime always dream of going to Japan, and I am the exact same. This is a bucket list trip for me, and it was everything I wanted and more. And so I wanted to go over some of my experiences with you, and I had some questions that people gave to me that they wanted answered. So I'm going to do my best to answer those questions as well, along with kind of go through my budget as well. I'm going to be doing this in terms of US dollar just because I'm American. And at the time of recording, it's something like 75 cents to the dollar for the yen. So if you are American and the dollar is very, very strong right now, it is very cheap to travel and stay in Japan. It's just getting to Japan is the very expensive thing. So without further ado, let's jump into it. I'm going to answer the questions that were submitted to me first, and then I'm going to jump into my experiences. So the first question that I had was it easy getting around Japan without knowing Japanese? And the answer to that was yes, for the most part. English is pretty ingrained in their society. A lot of like the storefronts, a lot of the brands and everything is in English. Most people that I incurred with spoke at least broken English or very basic English to the point where I could relay my message across, I would say 90% of the time. I also do know a little bit of basic Japanese, so when we ran into a struggle, I was able to use some of my Japanese as well. But for the most part, if you have Google Translate, it's very easy to get messages across. Just type it on your phone. I handed my phone to the person, and they're like, "Oh, that's what you meant," type of thing. There's also a few instances where they had Google Translate, so if they had a question for me, this happened a lot at like bars and restaurants. Um, I was able to, figure it out. And I never ran into like any issues except for one time, which I will get to when I do my recap. So for the most part, if you only know basic English, or if you only know if you only know English, maybe like a little bit of basic Japanese, I think you'll be fine. I actually incurred some ways to say things correctly. Arigato, like saying thanks, is not the correct way. You should say arigato when like at a restaurant or a bar. You should say arigato gozaimasu. Arigato is very casual, like between friends. And then when you're at like a restaurant or something like that, it's more like a customary to say arigato gozaimasu. So that was interesting. I did not learn that right away. It's the same thing with saying goodbye. Like sayonara literally means like, I guess for I shouldn't say literally because I don't know this, but that means like bye forever type of thing. I usually just said bye bye, and most people just replied with bye bye. So that was really fun too. So I like that. I didn't think it was just like an anime thing, so that was cool. The next one was masks. How were masks there? They have in at the time of recording, you don't have to wear a mask unless you're like an employee, like employees at like restaurants, convenience stores, shops, all that stuff. I think they still have to wear masks up until very soon. I think they're getting rid of that. At the time of once this episode is out, that might already be done. But for the most part, I would say people 65 and older, I would say it's about 95% of people were wearing masks. And then I would say 65 and younger, I would say it's probably around 70% were wearing masks. It was a good chunk. A lot of like teenagers and young adults not wearing masks. I did see a lot of people, and this is what I did as well. I wore my mask a lot on like the trains. If I was in like very close contact, I wore my mask. But for the most part, when you were like, say you wanted to go out, at like a bar, like nobody was wearing masks really. Even like the bartenders, I think that they're technically supposed to, but like nobody cares. It was pretty laid back. So that's kind of like how masks were in Japan. I think it's changing like every day type of thing. So if you go soon, it might be different compared to how I had it, but this was more like I was in like the metropolitan area when this was happening. In the more rural areas that I went to, like really rural areas, not really anybody was wearing masks. I felt like I don't know if it's just like the small town vibe where it's not as crowded. That really wasn't the case, but more like Tokyo and Osaka and Kyoto, a lot more masks than I saw in like Takayama, Kanazawa, Shirakawa. So that's that on mask. And the last one is the JR Rail Pass, is it worth it? So, if you don't know what the JR Rail Pass is, it allows you to ride any JR rail train, bus, and ferry, if I'm not mistaken, for free. I mean, you buy the pass, but that includes like the bullet trains, the local trains as well. Is it worth it? As of right now, yes, is absolutely worth it. However, I did see in October that, let me say this, actually, let me rephrase this. If you are planning on using the bullet train, it is absolutely worth it because the bullet trains are, depending on what time it is, can vary, but usually in the $100 range one way from like Tokyo to Osaka is about $100. So I went to Tokyo to Osaka, back to Tokyo. If I bought those single tickets, that would be $200. I bought the 2 week pass, which ended up being about $400, and I used the bullet train a lot. And I also used the JR Rails itself, so it paid for me 100%. But if you were staying in like local Tokyo, local Osaka, local Kyoto, I don't think it's worth it at all. A lot of the times the trains to go from station to station is like 200 yen or like a buck 60, and spending $200 a week on a pass like that isn't worth it. I don't have like the math in front of me, but that's kind of like how I was calculating in my head at times. That I didn't feel like I needed the JR Rail Pass in certain locations if I wasn't already going somewhere else later. So look into the JR Rail Pass if that's for you. If you're someone like me, where I went from Tokyo to Kyoto to Osaka to Kanazawa, it was definitely worth it. But if you're staying in metropolitan Tokyo, I don't think it's worth it at all. So that's that. So those are the three questions that I had going into this episode. I'm gonna do like a day zero before jumping into my actual like adventure, I guess. So two things that I needed before even going to Tokyo was paying for my JR Rail Pass, which you can do online. I bought it at like jrailpass.com. With that website, you can also buy mobile Wi-Fi because your phone won't work in Japan. There are a lot of Wi-Fi hubs in like central Tokyo. The entire city is filled with Wi-Fi. So depending on where you're staying, you might not need this, but I was going out into like the Alps, the countryside. Some of the trains don't have Wi-Fi. The bullet trains do, but not the local trains. So I wanted to have some form of internet with me because I was in Japan. So I would recommend, I got the mobile Wi-Fi like router for 15 days. It was $100. I definitely think it was worth it. It's like 4G speed. So I was able to use Google Maps and listen to music while I was on the train and podcasts and stuff like that. So I definitely recommend getting the Wi-Fi. I know there's the SIM card option. To me, that didn't look as, I didn't really want to like change out my SIM card. The mobile Wi-Fi just seemed easier. I was also with people, so they needed internet. I also had that available, so which actually came in handy one time. So personally, I would recommend the mobile Wi-Fi over the SIM card, but that's just me. If you are flying to Japan, especially direct like I was, eat a lot of food before going on your trip. It, for me, it was, getting there was 13 and a half hours, and it was a direct flight, so that was cool. However, they labeled it that I had 2 in-flight meals, but I really had like 1.5 in-flight meals, and by the time I landed, I was starving. The last meal was like a breakfast sandwich and some fruit, which was not enough for me. I needed, especially if you're a big boy like me, I needed a little bit extra. And they had some snacks and stuff, but I really wasn't feeling. I really wish I ate like a big hearty meal prior to, or at least buying snacks at the airport or something along those lines. That was, I really wish I did that. Also, a neck pillow. I didn't bring a neck pillow. Really wish I brought a neck pillow. My neck was, I was hurting by the end of that flight. I am, maybe it's better for someone smaller, but I'm 6'2". I'm 220. I'm a big boy, and that tight of a space for 13 and a half hours was kind of tough. I was able to get around a little bit, but I didn't want to like disturb the person next to me type of thing, you know? So definitely wish I had a neck pillow. So that's that. I also landed in Haneda. There are 2 different spots to land in. So I'm gonna give my perspective of landing in Haneda Airport, which is just south of like metropolitan Tokyo. There's another one that's like 15 minutes outside in northern Tokyo. That one's like the less crowded one. Haneda is like, I think, the more of the hub. So things I wish I learned. If you are planning on getting the JR pass, you need to go to the JR Rail Center, which is like right when you get out of immigration, right when you get out of customs, which took like 45 minutes. It was actually a pretty smooth process. But they close at 8, and my plane landed at 6:30, and I got through customs at about 7:15, and there was a line out the door for getting a JR Rail Pass. Luckily, they have like a system where if you're in line by the time it's like 7:45, they'll get you in. So I was still good, but I was like on the cusp of not picking up my rail pass, which was sucked because I had to take the bullet train immediately when I landed because I wasn't staying in Tokyo. I was staying in Kanazawa. So if you are planning on buying the JR Rail Pass, be sure to check what time you land at and how much time it takes to get through customs. Mine was about 45 minutes that you'll be able to pick up your pass. Otherwise, you have to either go to Tokyo Station, which I'm not entirely sure what their time is, but knowing Tokyo Station, I feel like it's open later. But you need to be aware that it might be closed and you might not be able to pick up your JR Rail Pass, which would suck, especially if you are not staying in Tokyo the first night. So I got really lucky, but I want to put that out there for everybody. Also, get an IC card, which is like this prepaid card. You can get it at, there's like kiosks everywhere. The easiest way to find out which station has a IC card available or to recharge it, it says like recharge in English. And that was the best way for me to pick out which kiosk I need to go to because there are a lot of kiosks around Japan. So that will let you use it for some vending machines. Most convenience stores like 7-Eleven or Lawson's or Family Mart. You can also use it for taking non-JR Rail Pass lines because not every train, the subway, they're not all JR Rail. So the JR Rail Pass doesn't cover every single one. So definitely pick up an IC card. I put in 10,000 yen, which is about 80 bucks, 75 bucks. And that lasted me almost 2 weeks. I had to charge a little bit more because I ended up taking some buses when I was in the rural areas that used IC cards. And it's so much easier to pay for that than cash. So do that. Japan is a very, very heavy cash focused society. I heard about that it was, but I didn't realize how much it was. A lot of places do not accept cards. Especially if you like go to sit down restaurants, a lot of them don't. Especially the mom and pop style ones, or izakayas like drinking bars, and a lot of like the smaller bars do not accept cards. So for me, for my 2 weeks of stay, I got about $1,500 US in yen, which I think I brought over. It was just over 200,000 yen. I think I brought over. I think that's the right conversion. So I was there for 2 weeks, so I needed, a decent amount of money for food and stuff and travel. And so that was my budget. I had to go to the ATM once. I went to a 7-Eleven to do it. I actually went to a Lawson's first, and my card was declined, and I got scared because I had 2 days left, and I had about 60 bucks worth of yen, and I was like, I wasn't sure if that was gonna be enough money just in case something popped up and I wanted to do it. I wanted to have money available, type of thing. And then worst case scenario, you could always just go to a money transfer and get cash for USD. You have to take a penalty, but yeah, those are my like initial thoughts going into Japan and like prepping for it and kind of like my budget. Also, how much was my flight? Very expensive. If you don't have a credit card, by this time you should get a credit card, and you should get one that has bonus points or bonus miles with purchases, because that's what I did. I have a Chase Sapphire Preferred, and the beauty of that card, it's not like a shill or anything, but I think it's a really good, especially if you want to travel more. So if you use their travel portal, 1 point is normally like, or was it like 100 points is $1 or something like that. But if you use it for travel, for every 100 points, it's worth like $1.2 for travel. So my 60,000 points ended up being something like 72,000 miles. So I got $720 off of my flight, but I still out of pocket paid like $1,400 for this flight. So if it wasn't for my points, it'd be somewhere in like the $2,200 range. So if you can get a direct flight for less than that, I would highly recommend taking it. It was a very expensive trip, and I've been planning this for over a year, so that's kind of like my idea of how I was budgeting for all of this, and I'll give you like a grand total at the end of it of what I spent, but that is the gist of it. Let's get into day 0. All right, day 0. My day started with me waking up at 8 a.m. for my 11 a.m. flight, which was then delayed to 2:30. So I was hoping to get to Japan by, I think my plan was originally to land at 4-ish Japan time, and I ended up landing at 7. So that was a 13 and a half hour flight, which ended up being about something around 14 and a half hours on the plane, with just how long it took for us to take off and then how long we were on the tarmac, because when we landed, we didn't have a gate. We had to chill for a minute. So it was something around 14 and a half hours. It was a very long day. Then, after a 14 and a half hour flight, 45 minutes of sitting in line in custom immigration, which was pretty slick for the most part. There was a lot of people, but they had like something like 50 lines. So it honestly wasn't that bad. There's a few people who were struggling really hard, but really easy process. You just like scan your passport and they ask you like why you're here. I'm like, because I'm a fucking weeb, and they're like, all right, cool, welcome. So that was really fun. Then I had to go pick up my JR Rail Pass, which I said earlier. That whole me staying in line took about 30 minutes. And then I had to go pick up my mobile Wi-Fi, which was super funny because everything is in this third terminal, like right when you get out of immigration. Like everything is like right in front of you. There's like mobile Wi-Fi spots and the JR Rail Pass thing and the how to get to like the trains. Except for where I got my mobile Wi-Fi, I couldn't find it for the life of me. So I had to YouTube a video where this location was. It was called Ninja Wi-Fi, and I ended up having to like go around a corner, down a hall, around a corner, and they're just like chilling there, like behind a wall. It's really hard to see from like if you're like looking at down a hallway. It's like I don't know, past your field of view. So that took once I actually found it, it took 5 minutes. It was really easy. So then I had to take the monorail, which is super slick, to Hamamatsu Station, and then from Hamamatsu Station, I had to take that to Tokyo Central, which is the busiest, I think, subway in the world. And it showed. I got there at about 9 p.m. and it was pretty popping. It was a Saturday, but it makes sense. So then from there, I had to take the Shinkansen or the bullet train from Tokyo Central to Kanazawa. So Kanazawa is not close. It was a 2.5 hour bullet train, which luckily I passed out for the most part of it, but that was like a really just long travel day of being up for something like I think I was up for like 30 something hours straight, getting I shouldn't say straight, but I got like 45 minutes of sleep on the bullet train. I didn't fall asleep like right away because I was so excited to like be on a bullet train. Like this is sick. And it was awesome. I love bullet trains. It makes me wish we had good public transportation in the United States because holy crap, Japan is just incredible with that. Followed by that with a 10-minute walk to my hotel once I actually got to Kanazawa. So it ended up being something like an 18 and a half hour travel day, plus all the waiting and walking and all that fun jazz. But then I finally met up with my friends Tina and Anna at our hotel that we were staying at. They were already there. They've been traveling in Japan before I got there, so they set everything up for that location, which was super sweet of them. And did what any good friend would do. I started talking to them, and then mid conversation fell asleep. So that was day 0. I don't really count that as a day because I didn't do much. I ate a ham sandwich at the Tokyo station, and then when I got to Kanazawa, I bought like a pork cutlet sandwich from a convenience store, which was great. Very non-eventful day 1 or day 0, but then we'll get into day 1 where I was in Kanazawa. We starting our trip doing more of the rural stuff and then going into the bigger stuff like Tokyo and Osaka because I wanted to experience Japan. I thought that if I was just in Tokyo, um, kind of do like the same thing every night. I feel like it's more of like, explore the city, go out and drink or eat and do all that jazz. I feel like if we were in the country, we could probably do something a little bit different, and I wanted that experience, and I did. And I'm really glad I did it this way. So, Kanazawa, places that we went to that were incredible were the main focus is the Kanazawa Castle Park. It is a giant castle in sort of like the heart of Kanazawa. You can get a full tour of the castle, not the full castle, but like the what they have on display for people to go into. Full display of the castle, and then the entire like Imperial Gardens for 500 yen or $4, and that got us like 2 hours of like incredible scenery, some historic perspective on kind of like what that area was like then, because the castle is still intact. You have to walk around with your shoes off and like really see like what the inside of a castle is like. And then the gardens themselves was an absolute highlight of my trip. They were beautiful, they were stunning. So many bonsai trees that must have been thousands of years old. Um, they had like them on planks so they can kind of control how the bonsai trees grow, which I thought was incredible. So just like for a pure value standpoint, $5 for actually it was or $4 for we actually stayed for more than 2 hours. We actually did some hiking around that area as well, and just a beautiful area. I like this is like when I got like fully accustomed to like, oh shit, I'm in Japan. Like this is lit. Like this is crazy. That was like my real first experience of having that moment. And Kanazawa was just a beautiful city, kind of on the western sea side of Japan. So I don't know if that's a super big tourist spot, but there's a lot of tourists there, and I would definitely recommend if you are using the JR Pass to check out Kanazawa for like a day. A really cool like day 1 day spot to stay at. We also like small shops and restaurants and craft stores. So if you ever seen, gotta make some anime references, the Demon Slayer Entertainment arc, that style of architecture, like pretty preserved, and just had a great day of walking around, going shopping, buying like little knickknacks and trying out different food. They have a lot of like candy vendors as well. So, I got to get my snacks. It was also when I learned how to do dining etiquette in Japan. So, the first thing you do when you walk in is they will, even if you don't know the language, they will always ask you how many people are in your party, even if you're by yourself. So, if you don't know what they're saying to you, more than likely they're asking how many people are in your party. So, throw up like, hey, there's three of us, and then more than likely, if they have an English menu, they will give you an English menu, even if you can speak Japanese. If you're white like me, they're just gonna assume you're a foreigner, and they were right. Even though they have an English menu, doesn't mean that they speak English. So the best way that I found was pointing to the item that I wanted on the menu. I even saw like Japanese people doing this. I think that's just kind of their etiquette and how they order. Instead of just telling the waiter or waitress what you want, you point on the menu exactly what you want. And another thing is, I think a lot of times in America, you expect water before your meal, during your meal, after your meal. Not every place is like that. So this place, they didn't even serve us tea. This was like a pork ramen shop that we went to. You have to ask for water or ask for tea. Um, so kind of learned that as well. Like, hey, can I get water? They say like absolutely, and then they'll bring you like a jug of water. But I feel like that's not customary every single time. It did happen a lot when I would just get water or tea with my meal, but it happened 3 or 4 times where like nothing was served with my meal. Especially like if you order a beer, they won't give you a water. So keep that in mind in case you don't get like a water or anything. It's polite to ask, and they will gladly bring it over to you. Also, you have to pay. You don't pay at the table. You walk up to the cash register and you pay the dude directly in cash most of the time, and they will take care of that. So that was a welcome to Japan moment. So pretty interesting. So that was pretty much day one. We walked something like 40,000 steps. Did something like 16, 18 miles of walking. By that time, we were pretty gassed. We did end up going to. There's a pretty big mall by the Kanazawa train station that we went to for dinner and dessert. So we went to like a family style restaurant that I got like a pork cutlet bowl, which was fantastic. And then we stopped by, I think it's called Happy Pancake. And we got Japanese style pancakes, which this is kind of like where I learned like true Japanese sweets. Not sweet, not sweet at all. It was very fluffy, very doughy, and very not. Even though I used syrup and powdered sugar on, at least I think it was powdered sugar on the pancake, it was pretty dry. So That would be a reoccurring theme throughout my trip in Japan. That sweet. Went back to our hotel, pretty gassed by that point. I think by the end of the day, we left at like 10 a.m. We got back around 10 p.m. So a full day of activities of shopping and sightseeing and eating and all that jazz. So Kanazawa is a definite recommend for like a 1 day trip. All right, day two. So day two, we were heading to Shirakawa-go, which is for you anime fans. It is where Higurashi is like based on the city, the landscape, that type of stuff is based off Higurashi. So we took the Shinkansen to Toyama, and then from Toyama had to take a bus from Toyama to Shikawa. This is where I experienced like real Japanese friendliness, that were just super super nice. We had to take a bus, and we didn't really know which bus we had to take. When we got to the bus station, looked a little confused. Luckily, a guy came over, spoke perfect English. He was like an employee there, asking like where we're going. And I was like, "Hey, we're going to Shirakawa." He's like, "Oh, fantastic! The bus will be here in 4 minutes. It's pink. You want to get on the bus? You'll pay when you get there." I'm like, "Oh, awesome!" He shot the shit with us. Like, he has family in Chicago, and I was like, "Oh, that's awesome! Like, we're from Minnesota. It's pretty close to Chicago." He's like, "Oh yeah, it's like," he's like, "This is probably summer to you guys." I was like, "Why do you say that?" It was like 50 degrees, and I was sweating. So really nice guy. Told us a bunch of stuff. Gave us like a map when we got to Shirakawa, like where to go, what to see, type of thing. I was like, awesome. Like, thank you so much for your help. This was wonderful. We would have probably gotten confused a little bit because like the bus driver didn't speak like any English at all. Because one of my friends had a question and we weren't able to get that answered really. So took the bus to Shirakawa. That took about 2 hours on the bus, but it was cool because we really got to experience like going up into the mountains, and it was like windy and beautiful scenery. Loved the whole trip there. And so Shirakawa is a heritage preservation city. It's very historic. The it gets a lot of snow based off how high up they are in the mountains. Like the houses are built a little differently compared to traditional Japanese architecture. So that was like really fun to see. Just being knowing that it's Higurashi styled, and my friends and our from our podcast are huge Higurashi fans and huge Yumineko fans. That I had to get some merch, so I got some Higurashi merch there as well. This was also the best food I had on the entire trip was in Shirakawa. If you're ever in Shirakawa, the restaurant is called Shirakawa-go Restaurant Iori. It's near to the bus station. I got this like beef that you like cook on like your own grill, but like it's not like a Korean barbecue grill. It was like a flame lit grill on your plate. You cook it. It was in this miso sauce that was just, oh my god, life changing. That area is known for their meat, and you could tell. And that sauce was incredible. I also got like hot udon noodles and like some other like side dishes and miso and rice, and that was just oh, the best meal I had all time in Japan. That was incredible. So Shirakawa, huge tourist, huge. They have like their own parking lot on the other side, just filled with buses. There was probably, I think it's a town of like 2,200 people. I think in the town walking around, there's probably 1,500 tourists, and it's not a big town. There's like two main streets, and each along those streets were just like same type of thing where it's like cafes and bars and restaurants, and kind of just like walk around, enjoy the city. It was a really nice day out. It wasn't raining. I would recommend if you're going through like the countryside and you want to do that. I think Shirakawa is like a great stop for like a few hours, unless where we were staying, the town has a ryokan or like a Japanese style inn, which is also a hot spring. So this is my first hot spring experience, which was incredible. We got the like, overview of the mountains with like a stream running through on your. They had like two private baths, which I had to use because I have tattoos. So if you have tattoos, you are not allowed in the public baths here. It's different everywhere, but at least for the most part in like traditional ryokans, tattoos are a no-no in the public bath. So I had to wait for a private bath, which was open like all the time. Like nobody used the private one. So if you were like worried if I should also say I went to this on a Wednesday, so maybe the weekend's a little bit busier, but if you want like your own private ryokan, if you go on a weekday, it seems like it was a pretty good like chance that you got it. You kind of just go if it's open, you take it. They ask you like limit to like 45 minutes. Pretty hot. I probably lasted somewhere around like 15 minutes, lucky, but um yeah, I got pretty hot, and then like that was enough. But like I just felt like $1 million coming out of like the ryokan, so that was super cool. Very traditional. This one we will end up going to another one later, but a lot of times they serve you meals either in your room or at like their restaurant. This one wasn't the case. We had to fend for ourselves, which I think we just went to like a local restaurant in town. I don't remember it being memorable. I remember our lunch being super memorable. Maybe I'm overshadowed from my lunch, but yeah, really cool small town if you are interested in like going through the countryside. Shirakawa is a great spot. Day 3, taking the bus from Shirakawa to Takayama. Oh, I should say the bus trip from Toyama to Shirakawa was about $15. Pretty cheap. Next was Shirakawa to Takayama, which was also about $15. And this is by far my like favorite small town, if I would put it in like parentheses. Just just a beautiful, lively, mid-size. Maybe in like America it might be considered big. I'm not. I think it has like 60,000 people or something like that, but very lively. It's also the town that Hyoka is based on. So if you've seen Hyoka, there's some like landmarks there as well. There was a crossing sign that had Chitanda as like the crossing guard, so that was really fun. Geisha style district shopping centers, just like they were in Kanazawa. This one just felt bigger and open. The space, it just seemed like it had more space, and to me that was like a huge plus. It felt way easier to like get around in this shopping area, along with just having an incredible just vibe to it. So they have like their cities like bunched in districts, like this geisha shopping district, like all in one area, and then like their entertainment district was like in one area as well. So if you wanted to go to like bars or izakayas and go out drinking with your friends, they had like specific spots in like this block area that you could go to. So like bar hopping was like super easy in this area. But I went to the coolest restaurant I think in this entire trip. It's called Center for Burgers, and it is a burger spot. The guy who runs it is the waiter. He's the chef. He is the cash man. He's everything, but it only fits like 10 people. So you have to go. We got there like right when it opened, and there was like sorry, let me say this. Luckily, it was raining, so there wasn't that many people. But we got there like right before it opened. There's one group of people ahead of us. We didn't know this going into it, but we got seated right away. But it was us, the people that were there, and then they had two single spots for if you want to eat by yourself. So if you're with a group, you have to go there right away, or it's like a 45-minute to an hour wait. Really good burgers. The guy like studied in America how to make burgers and then came back here or back to Japan. His entire shop is set up with like Midwestern memorabilia, like a lot of like Wisconsin and Minnesota stuff. I think that's where he was a cook. So that was like really cool to like see like a taste of my hometown in Japan. And the guy was just super nice, pretty reasonable price and size portions as well. A lot of the Japanese portions are smaller, which I knew that going into it, so I would just order like extra whatever. This was like a pretty good sized burger, and he had fries and stuff like that, so that was fun to get like a taste of America in Japan. But just an overall fantastic vibe. If you want one spot to go for like a small town, Takayama is my absolute go-to spot. I loved it. Just super friendly, great vibe, really easy to get from spot to spot to spot. We also stayed in this really cool hostel that was just like kind of like a room but like really high up, um, with like 4 single beds on 2 platforms. So really interesting, like 10 square meter hostel, but it was really fun. Day 4. And our hostel for 3 people was $46 total. Um, so yeah, like $13 a per 15 bucks a person. Pretty cheap to stay the night. They do. Japan's also really interesting. They don't charge by the room. Well, they do charge by the room, but then they also charge by the person as well. So staying by yourself, it's a little bit cheaper. than staying with other people. But yeah, I mean, it's super cheap. $15 a night to stay in. I mean, if you're just there to sleep, and it's clean, and for the most part, pretty comfortable. Yeah, definitely recommend staying in Japan. Day 4 went to Takayama to Matsumoto. This bus ticket was about $20. This one was like, if I was to recommend not going somewhere, it would be Matsumoto. I don't know if it's just like what was going on during the day, but we knew that there was like a castle in like the center city, and we were hoping that there would be some stuff going on, but the city was dead. It was really dead. There was like a mall area in like city center with a lot of like teenagers and stuff, but in terms of like adults or young adults, there was like no scene really. We were like walking down a bunch of different streets to see if there was something happening somewhere. Maybe more like a more lively restaurant or bar. Really couldn't find anything. We settled on getting Indian, which was great. The guy was from India, so that was really cool. We got like authentic Indian food in Japan. Fantastic, but the city itself really didn't seem like it had a lot going on. We used this as our laundry day. So we got an Airbnb for this location just because we didn't really like what was around like the train center or the bus station. So we got an Airbnb, and this is where we ran into my first and only translation battle. I'll put it that way. We had to take a taxi cab to get to our Airbnb. No big deal. Showed the taxi guy the address. He types it into his little thing in his car. Starts driving. I'm tracking on Google Maps. I'm like, okay, he's going the right way. Blah 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 blah. We get close to the house. He kind of goes like off, and parks his car. And he's like, okay, like in English, he says, "Get out." I'm like, this is not our location. So like I type in Google Translate. I'm like, this is not where we're supposed to be. He's like, get out, pay, and I like show him on like Google Maps. I'm like, no, no, no. Like where we're supposed to go is like around the block, and it's like up a hill. I wouldn't mind walking, but like it was very hilly, and we were very tired. It was like straight up a hill. So I was like, can you please drop us off at this location? And finally he did, but like this was like the only time someone I felt was like really kind of rude. I like type it out like this is not like there was like no houses like where we were. It was like a vacant lot. I'm like, obviously this is not our Airbnb. Figured it out, but like that was like the one and only time I felt like oh you stupid foreigner type of thing. Like come on man, let's try to get to our Airbnb. So laundry day, not much to do. Yeah, Matsumoto wouldn't recommend it. So moving on to day 5, we went from Matsumoto to Hakone. So this one was a 4.5 hour travel. This was 3 trains and a bus. Luckily, this whole time, except for the bus, was on the JR rails. So the whole 4.5 hour trip cost me $6 for the bus ticket, which was really, I mean, thinking about how much we had to travel for $6, not a bad deal. And we stayed at a place called Hotel Mizunoto. So with this location, this was a bucket list item for me just because I love like hot tubs and pools and stuff like that. And I was worried that maybe they wouldn't have locations for me to use the hot spring. So this location, I got a private room with the onsen on our balcony, and it was a little pricey. It also came with 2 full meals, but this was something like I wanted to do so bad ever since I went to Japan. Like if I was going to splurge, it was going to be on this. So for 3 people, this is also on a Friday, so they had weekend pricing as well. 3 people for like your own private on the balcony onsen. It's also top level. Like we were bougie this time around. It was like $500, like straight up. It was a lot for one night. The 2 meals we had were delicious. I'm not a big fish guy, but that fish is so fresh that I could eat that fish almost every single day in Japan. It was incredible. But if you're looking to, splurge a little bit, I think this is where I would recommend it. Hakone is kind of like the getaway place for people who live in like central Tokyo and stuff like that. It's an hour outside the city, and it's really easy to get to by bullet train and by bus. So it was pretty. The whole area is just filled with onsen. So it was a very, very crowded area, but it's also like in the hills. It's like built alongside the hillside. So if you picture like Initial D drifting down the hills and stuff like that. This is like what Initial D is like taking place in, are these hills. For anime related stuff, it's where Yomamushi Idol's like biggest rival, the Hakone team, is based there. I guess because it's so hilly, it makes really good like cross country bikers, which makes sense. So had to throw in a little anime stuff there. So that was my last day with my friends Tina and Anna. The rest of it was a solo trip. So leaving Hakone, I went to Tokyo for the first time. Like really experienced Tokyo. When I landed, it was dark, it was rainy, I couldn't tell where anything was. This time I was bright as day. I stayed in Shibuya, famous for the Shibuya crossing. It's the most like cross through um, pedestrian area in the world, and it was kind of busy. I didn't think it was that as busy as other people I've seen like pictures of, but time and place maybe type of thing. I stayed at a place called the Millennials, which is a very foreigner specific hostel. I could tell right away. All the staff spoke English, which was very convenient. It was 25 bucks a night, and you stay in like the heart of Shibuya. Couldn't ask for a better deal. Kind of like a mix between a hostel and a like capsule pod rooms. It was a twin size bed, so a little bit bigger than what I was. Oh, sorry, full size bed. A little bit bigger than what I was normally staying on because everywhere else was twin size. So if you're big like me, it was like not as comfortable considering I sleep on a twin or a queen every night. So a little bit nicer there. Heart of Shibuya, definitely recommend if you're staying it. They also have, if you're a lady, the seventh floor is women only, so you can feel very safe like staying there. I feel like it's a fantastic location. Definitely recommend the Millennials in Shibuya. Did some bopping around there, had some incredible pancakes. There's some more like American style pancakes. It was like my highlight dessert of it. It was like macadamia nut pancakes. Wonderful, wonderful. Shibuya is just popping. And this is where I found something out in Tokyo. So if you ever want to feel ugly, go to Tokyo because everyone is just beautiful. And I mean that in not only like their looks physically, but like the wardrobes that they wear. So this is a thing that I found out that people will buy like $1,000 outfits, like uh, just stunning. Like you're about to go on a night on the town, but you don't actually go out. You just walk around and look. That's like a thing, and you could definitely tell that people were just there to show off their clothes. The very fashionable city, and I was just walking around in like my Yu Yu Hakusho t-shirt. I was like, well, I feel super fucking out of place right now. So that was like kind of like a wake up. I'm like, oh man, like I didn't bring any nice clothes on this because I was doing so much walking. Like I only brought t-shirts and like shorts and like I wasn't not expecting to be outclassed by like every single person that was there. So that was fun. Shibuya was a great town. If you're looking to go out, uh, drinks, restaurants. I'm not a club guy, but they have like massive, massive clubs in Shibuya, like 3 level story clubs. Definitely would recommend Shibuya. I had fun by myself, bar hopping, restaurant hopping, just sightseeing in general. So yeah, I would definitely recommend Shibuya for at least a night, if not two. Probably way more fun if you had friends as well. Solo traveling it was very fun. I would say that. But my favorite spot was the next day. Yeah, I'm going through I had to write this down. Next day, Shinjuku. Love Shinjuku. Shinjuku is my favorite part of Tokyo that I visit in general, whether it's during the day or at night. I love Shinjuku. If you are ever in Shinjuku, you need to go to Tokyo Kabuko Tower. Um, it is I don't even know how many levels it is. Like 14 level tower. Each level has like its own thing. The first like 3 levels were just different bars, uh, different restaurants, all in this area. There's a massive arcade that was like popping, like insanely popping. Um, Arcades are like a huge thing in Japan, and this was like the busiest, most active, most lively arcade that I went to, like by far. And then they also had like this thing called like the Matrix experience, which looked super cool. It's like a VR thing. They also had a VR Neon Genesis Evangelion thing that the wait was like 2 hours to get in. I was like, nah. But I had a blast, just like vibing out. They had like a DJ. Um, what was it? Namco, I think that's what it is. Namco style drink. So they had like a Sonic drink, and they had like a Pokemon drink and some other stuff. It was just a great spot to hang out, get a drink, rest your feet, charge my phone there after like walking around a lot and having a pretty long, well, not a long travel day. Hakone to Tokyo was an hour, and then from Tokyo to Shibuya was like, so like very easy travel day compared to others. But Shinjuku is my absolute favorite spot in Tokyo. Definitely recommend it for day and night. Then the next day, oh no, sorry, during the day as well, before going to Shinjuku, I went to Kitazawa, which is like 10-15 minutes outside of Shibuya. This is the city that Bocchi the Rock is based off of, so I wanted to get a picture at the Starry nightclub, which is called Shelter. This is like the town where, like, if I were to move to Tokyo, I would move here, Kitazawa. So they have a pretty solid sized train station. In the train station was like restaurants and bars. Around the train station was like restaurants and businesses and stuff like that. And then outside of, it's like a circle inside of a circle inside of a circle. It's like Attack on Titan, like wall inside of wall inside of a wall. And then outside that was like a nice residential area. So it was like a cool area. I just like how that was like built out. But I had to get a picture of the Starry nightclub, which was fun because they have like 4 signs in English. It was like, take a picture and leave. Do not come down the steps. If you're not here for a show, like, take the picture and leave. Like, we do not want people hanging around here because Bocchi the Rock is so popular. I thought that was like really funny that it was like not only in Japanese, but they had like 4 English posters saying like, take the picture and leave, get out. I was like, all right, cool. I ended up getting like German food in this area, which was really good. I got some like sausages, some Wiener schnitzels and stuff like that. That was, I don't know, it was just like, it was open. It was pretty easy on the price, and I was very, very hungry. And I didn't want to risk anything. So got to experience a lot of Japanese food, but every now and then I just wanted to go back to like Old Reliable. And I was like, I like sausage. Fuck it. Let's get that. So that's what I did there. So that ends my first 2 days in Tokyo. Don't worry, I come back. And then this time, days 8, 9, and 10, I traveled from Tokyo to Osaka. Wanted to get to a wrestling show. Kind of like wrestling. I've always heard things about Japanese style wrestling shows, so I wanted to go to one. There was one in Osaka. Fun fact about like these style of shows. It also happened later at a baseball game that you have to buy the tickets in Japan. Like, you can't just use Ticketmaster. So I couldn't buy my tickets ahead of time. So I had to wait till I was in Japan to buy these tickets. They have like a QR code. You go to like a 7-Eleven. They have a specific machine. You scan your QR code, then you can buy the tickets there. All the tickets were sold out. So I went to Osaka and all the tickets were sold out. And I wanted to go to the show. I was like, well, and I saw online that they had standing room only tickets, limited availability. I was like, okay, so I got to Osaka, and then this is so dumb of me. It's also like a lesson I learned. When you go to Osaka, when you go to Tokyo, make sure you type in, especially if you're staying at a hotel, make sure you type in exactly what your hotel is. So there's a hotel chain called like APA, and they have like 1,000 hotels. In Osaka, they have like 9. So me being the idiot I was, staying at an APA hotel, I typed in like APA Osaka. So I went to that hotel room. I handed them my passport. I'm like, checking in. I'm like, we don't have your reservation. Can you show us your reservation online? I'm like, sure. Like, here's my email, blah, blah, blah. They're like, you're at the wrong spot. Like, this is APA Osaka Namba. You're at APA Osaka, like some random neighborhood. I'm like, well, yeah. Okay. So then I had to walk 25 minutes to my next hotel room. And then I had to walk 20-some minutes to the event, hoping I could get standing room tickets. And they still had some. So, crisis averted. But if you are checking into a hotel, make sure it's the correct one and don't be an idiot like me. So I saw a New Japan Pro Wrestling show. It was 5,000 yen or $40 to get there. Oh, and by the way, traveling through like Tokyo and all that stuff, I got to use the JR pass for almost everything. So trains were essentially free as long as you had the pass. However, traveling from where I was to like the city center, I had to use the subway. The subway is not the JR rail pass, but to get from like my hotel to like the main popping location in Osaka, it's like 200 yen. So that's where the IC card comes in handy. You tap it. You tap it when you walk in, you tap it when you leave. Easy peasy. So back to my New Japan show. Yeah, it was just an awesome experience to just see some of the people that I've been watching for like 5-6 years in person. I've always been told that Japanese fans are more quiet and reserved. I don't know if it's just Osaka, but they were very loud and it was super fun. The only problem was I had to stand for 2.5 hours and I have an old man back, so I was aching, by the time that was done. So I used this day. I got back to my hotel room around like 9. Use this as an excuse to just relax, do some laundry. They had like a all-in-one like washer dryer system because the place before I had to hang my clothes. So this one I used the all-in-one washer. So that was 600 yen to wash and dry my clothes. Easy peasy. Except it took like 2.5 hours. The next day, woke up. This was like my sightseeing day. So I wanted to check out Osaka. And it ended up being my favorite city just in general. I love the vibe of Osaka. It felt way more casual, which is what I was accustomed to. It felt way more open. And the people there were just like really nice and friendly. So I have a very fun story. I went and got dinner. Um, I did some sightseeing throughout the day, just like around Osaka. Google Osaka tourist sites. I probably went to it. Got some dinner. Got some like I was a big fan of like the pork and beef. Did not like Japanese chicken. It just tasted different. I don't know what it was, but I'm just so accustomed to American style chicken that it just didn't taste the same. It felt very bland and not meaty. It felt very veiny, I guess is maybe the word to put it. Don't recommend Japanese chicken. Maybe it's just the spots I went to, but I tried it like 3 times just to see like maybe that spot was bad and it wasn't. But every time I got pork, every time I got beef, fantastic. I went to a place called Bar Jazz after dinner. And it was a jazz club. I was just like looking at bars in that area to go to. And the owner spoke English. There was like 2 other people there, but they were both Japanese. The bartender was like, "Hey," spoke like not like perfect English, but like very good English. So this happened twice. So this is the first time where the bartender offered to give me food if they could practice their English with me. I said, absolutely. Like, I love free food. It's like my favorite thing in the world. So I got a bunch of drinks. I should say a bunch. I had like 2 or 3 drinks at this bar. Super cool environment. Just like thousands of vinyls on the wall. Pulls it out, puts a new one on. Just a whole great jazz vibe. Fed me like bar nuts and some bread and stuff like that while I was drinking. It was great. So then like, do you want to go like out drinking tonight? Like, is that your plan? I'm like, yeah. I mean, like, if I wouldn't mind like going to like another bar, checking it out, type of thing. We'll see where the night goes. He's like, okay, come with me. So he walks me to his other bar that he owns, which is also another jazz club. It's one of those ones where it's like in a building. It's on like the 3rd floor. It doesn't have like an open sign. It's just like a red door. Open it up. It's a jazz bar. I'm the only person there. So me, the owner, and then the bartender are just sitting there shooting the shit, drinking, talking or whatever. The bartender spoke pretty decent English, so that was nice. He asked me like why I was in Japan, and at this time I was pretty buzzed. And instead of saying like the stereotypical stuff, I was like, okay, like I'm a huge anime fan, huge manga fan. Like I love that style of like media. It brought me to here. Like I'm planning on going to Akihabara and stuff. He's like, oh, okay. He's like, I got the perfect spot for you. So he told me to go to this other bar when we were done drinking called Bar 10. If you are ever in Osaka, go to Bar 10. I love this spot. So I go there. It's on the 6th floor of a building. And I walk in there. I'm the only person there. And the bartender didn't even notice me. And he's like, oh, it's like, oh, sorry. So he gets me like, he gets me like a water, he gets me some like bar nuts, sits me down or whatever. And he's just like, what can I get you? I was like, okay, can I get like a gin and tonic? He's like, sure, sure, sure. He's like, what brings you to my bar specifically? Because I'm the only person there. And it's like 9 o'clock on a Friday. So, or is it Saturday? It was a weekend. So he's like, "Oh, what brings you to my bar specifically?" I was like, "Oh, funny story. I was with this bar guy, owner from Bar Jazz, and this other bartender. And I was telling him how much I like anime and manga, and he recommended me to your bar." And then his face just grinned. And this, I, he's probably somewhere around my age, but he was like a bigger weeb than I was. He was so he's like, nobody here ever comes and like talks about anime or manga. Like, what's your favorite? I'm like, my favorite anime of all time is Violet Evergarden. He goes, that's my second favorite anime of all time. I'm like, okay, instantly me and this guy are best friends. Like, this is great. So we shoot the shit about anime and manga for like an hour and a half. Feed me drinks, feed me food. He spoke pretty good English. A few times I'd use Google Translate, but like I would show him like pictures of like an anime that I'm watching. He's like, "Oh, I love that! Like I'm watching, like I'm on episode 2." I was like, "Yeah, Tal, like this is wild," and having like a really great time. And then it's about 11 o'clock. Two dudes walk in. They are from Norway. Shout out to my friends Frederick and Tommy. They sit down next to me. We start talking. Blah blah blah. They have a dart machine. He's like, "You want to go play darts?" I said, "Sure." So we get drinks. We play darts. We're having a good time. Come around midnight. Yeah, I'm like, "Hey, do you want to like continue going out drink? Like, you want to try another bar?" He's like, "Absolutely." So me, Frederick, and Tommy are gonna go to another bar. We actually go one floor down. I forgot what the bar is called, but another very small bar. Tommy goes in first. So Tommy is Asian, but he's not Japanese. And immediately when we walk into the bar, they think like he's our translator. They start speaking Japanese to him. He's like, "I don't speak Japanese." And everyone's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Like, we thought you spoke Japanese." So that was really funny. Their bar is completely filled, but they have a private karaoke like room in the back, like a VIP karaoke room. They're like, "You can go sit in there and do karaoke if you like." So it's like, I'm 9 deep. I don't really like karaoke, but when you're 9 deep, I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So we get like our own VIP room. The waiter like serves us like I felt like a superstar essentially. It was like really nice couches, pretty reasonable drinks, and we got like our own room. So that was fun. I did Hotline Bling. They sing like a lot of Beatles. They were like old souls at heart, but I think they were like 2 years younger than me. So I think they were like 29 or 30. Yeah, that was wild. And then we just went bar hopping in Osaka till 5 a.m. The bars closed at 5. I cannot tell you the last time I stayed up until 5 a.m. My body was shot, but it was like honestly one of like the best nights of my life. It was so much fun just being two people. And it's like, guess what? We're gonna make each other's nights. We played credit card roulette twice at different bars. So if you don't know what that is, take your credit card, hand it to the bartender. Bartender picks one. Whoever's card that is, they pay for the tab. I lost 0 times, so I got almost all my drinks free that night. Minus some of the bars where we didn't play credit card roulette, so that was super cool. A great night, free drinks, free food, great conversation, great people. Just one of the best nights. After that after the next day, I went to so this is day 10. I went to Kyoto, which is a 12-minute bullet train ride from Osaka. It's very to get to Osaka, and this is where I made another blunder. I got on the wrong bus after I got onto the train. So I was trying to go to a place called Kiyomizu Dera, which is a absolute tourist trap. It was insane. There's also like 37 field trips going on during this time, so that was just an absolute mess of me getting on the wrong bus. I ended up taking another bus. I should have realized it. Like I wasn't looking at like Google Maps, like seeing where it goes, but I knew it was like a 14-minute bus ride. So by the time where I felt like it was like 14 minutes, I'm like, where am I? So I look at Google Maps. I'm on like the opposite side of town. This is in like the west, or sorry, the east side of Kyoto. I'm on the east side, or I'm on the west side. I'm like, well, shit. So I take like a subway and another bus, and I get there. It's supposed to be 14 minutes. It took me like an hour and a half to get there. So I had to walk a lot. Not smart. So Kiyomizu-dera is a tourist trap. It's like a shrine. It's a huge shrine area. You have to walk up this huge ass hill. But the streets is just filled with like shops and stuff. But there were so many people that I couldn't like get into the store. So I didn't really know what was there. Really, I didn't really experience that part of Kyoto. But it was still like an interesting spot. I think it was like 500 yen to get in, which was like $4. No big deal. Oh, the bus and the subway cost me like $8 or something like that. So even if I fucked up, it wasn't expensive. But the place to go to in Kyoto is called Fushimi Inari Taishu. It is a hiking trail just filled with like these shrines along the entire way, and it was just beautiful and breathtaking, especially if you like architecture. The fact that you went under these, you can Google it, but it's like these orange gates, but it's the entire trail, and the trail's like, if you walk the whole thing, it's like 15 miles. I walked like one trail, it was like 3 miles uphill. That was a lot. A very long day, but when you get to the top, it's like a completely open canopy of um, Kyoto, which was beautiful and made the hike completely worth it. It was just stunning. The architecture along the way. There's like rest stops throughout the trail, so that was nice. I had to sit down a few times, but if I would recommend one spot in Kyoto, it would be Fushimi Inari Taishu. Hope I said that correctly, but that was honestly a top 3 highlight of my entire trip. And then by that time, I was gassed, just, messing up with the bus, hiking, doing all this walking. I think I did something like 45,000 steps that day. I think I did like over 20 miles. So I was toast. I think it was like 6 p.m. I'm like, I'm ready to go home, which was back to Osaka. So this time instead of taking the bus, I took the subway. So I knew the subway, I had to walk like 12 minutes to get to the subway instead of taking the bus stop. Because I knew the bus would go right to the the bus station. So that was that. So I took it right there. Oh, I forgot. On day 8 or 9, when I said I did like sightseeing, I went to Nara Park in Osaka. Can't believe I forgot this. Nara Park, known for their deers. The deers will come right up to you and bite you. One bit my ass because I got a juicy rumper, but I also had snacks, and I think he wanted snacks. But Nara Park is an absolute must. If you are in Osaka, it's like a 25-minute train ride from Osaka to Nara. Just a beautiful area. I spent like 3.5 hours there. I loved it. Absolute great day trip. Go to Nara Park. So that concludes Osaka and Kyoto. I wish I got to spend more time in Kyoto. I'm gonna do a thing at the end where like things I wish I did more or would do if I went back. Spend more time in Kyoto. So then the last leg of my trip, days 11, 12, 13, and 14, were spent in Tokyo. So I went from Osaka to Tokyo, back on the bullet train, free of charge because of the JR pass. And this time I stayed in Akihabara because what Weeb's journey doesn't start or end or have some way of stopping in Akihabara. It is the Israel of Weeb, you know. So I was expecting so much from Akihabara. I thought it was mid. I I thought Akihabara was really boring, to be honest with you. If you every bar, every stop is like a host club. And the thing about maid cafes where I thought you could just go and eat food, no. They have a cover charge and they also have a time limit. So if I wanted to just sit down at, I think the cheapest maid cafe was 2,000 yen for like $15 for an hour. And that doesn't include, oh, and a lot of them had like 2 drinks minimum. So if you want to go to a maid cafe, at minimum, it was probably going to cost you 4,000 yen or $30 just to sit and drink, which I feel like would be fine. That price point is probably fine for a lot of people. But I just felt so awkward being by myself. Like, oh, typical white weeb goes to a maid cafe. I just could not do it. I wanted to just to have that experience. That was like the one thing I couldn't like force myself to go into and do. Couldn't go into a maid cafe. I didn't do it. I'm sorry to disappoint you guys, but I don't even know if I could host this podcast anymore with chickening out and going to a maid cafe. So instead, I went to a Monster Hunter themed cafe. I don't even play Monster Hunter, but I was starving. They had seats available. I thought it would be fun, so I went in there. Everybody was a tourist at this cafe. I'm like, oh great. Sat down, ate food, got a beer or whatever, and then left pretty quick. They also had like a Final Fantasy themed cafe in the level below, but that one you needed reservations for. I was kind of like, I was hoping. I walked up. I'm like, any room for one? They're like, no reservation. Damn it! Like at least I play Final Fantasy, so that would have been cool. I walked around. I checked out like the main arcade that you see in like Akihabara pictures. That was pretty sweet. I played a couple games. I played like the Fate Grand Order arcade game, which was really cool, except it's all in Japanese, and I didn't know what I was doing. It was like 100 yen, so like who cares? I played like the Initial D driving game. They had like an entire retro area on like the seventh floor, so you could play like old school retro games. That was pretty fun. I felt like if I had like friends there, it would have been way more fun. But stayed in like the arcade for like I don't know 30, 45 minutes, maybe just checking that out. I went to Animate, which is like the big anime store in Akihabara, which was just crazy packed. It was so busy that like I really couldn't like look around because I'm huge compared to everybody there, and the aisles are not that big. Felt really out of place. I went through every level, but like didn't really like go into it. But I wasn't really buying merch. I didn't really pack. I packed really tight. Like no room for merch. I had my Higurashi stuff from Shirakawa. But that was like it for merch that I bought. It was really tight. So that was Akihabara. Little underwhelming. No real like nightlife in Akihabara unless you want to go to maid cafes, unless you want to go to host clubs, which they don't have strip clubs. You go to host clubs, but instead of girls dancing on you, they talk to you. So if that's your thing, go to a host club. But I can just talk to people normally. It's fine. I don't need to pay for that. So I didn't do any of that. So I thought Akihabara was a little underwhelming. The next day, I went back to Shinjuku because I enjoyed it so much during. I was mostly in Shinjuku for the night. I wanted to check it out during the day. That's also where the steps from Your Name are located. So I want to do some anime sightseeing. I found the steps. Um, Another thing, you know how I was in Osaka and I looked up the wrong hotel. Guess what? Looked up the wrong steps. It's called like the Fushi Shrine or something like that. And there are multiple of those named shrines in Shinjuku. So I picked one that was on the map and I went to it. Wasn't it? Especially if you read the Google reviews of that location, it clearly says these are not the Your Name steps you are looking for. I didn't read that. So I walked by train and by walking. It was like an hour and a half there and back to Shinjuku. I was like, well, wasted an hour and a half of my day. Found the right steps. They were really easy to find. Funny enough, it also on Google has like 3,000 reviews, so it's pretty obvious these are the correct steps. So I did end up finding that. And then Shinjuku has, it's just so, even during the day, it was like really lively. Found like a really nice restaurant to sit down and eat. They have a beautiful park in the city. I think it was like 300 yen to get into the park. Just like wide open. Let me like sit down and rest and relax. This is where I wanted to play pachinko, Japanese style like slot machines, because life is better with money on the line. So if you think slot machines are a scam, pachinko is the biggest scam of them all. I think I wasted. I think I played 10,000 yen, so I played about $80 worth of pachinko. I won nothing, like not even close to anything. Even in slot machines, when you get like bonus games and stuff like that, you win something a little bit. I got into like the bonus games for these pachinko machines. They would last like 8 minutes, and then you'd win nothing. I'm like, what's the point? So they even win like I would have been cool with like putting in 100 or 10,000 yen, leaving with 50,000 yen or something. Like yeah, I lost 5,000 yen. Like whatever, I lost $40. It got me like an hour of time out. Nothing. Huge scam. Avoid pachinko parlors. They're everywhere in Japan. So definitely avoid that. But that was really fun. Love Shinjuku. By far like my favorite prefecture. Or, I don't know what it's called. Is it a prefecture? No, it's not a prefecture. But like neighborhood in Japan. Love Shinjuku. Loved it during the day. Loved it during the night. And then my third and final day, like full day, I spent going to central Japan. So I went back to Tokyo Central Station. That's right across the street from the station is the Imperial Palace. So I wanted to check that out. Unless you're going there for a tour, it's pretty boring. Everything's blocked off. You can walk through the courtyard, but I would not recommend going to the Imperial Palace. unless you were going to get like they have like 2 scheduled tours a day unless you went to like a so then after walking through the Imperial Palace, I went to the Tokyo Sky Tower. I walked there. That was like a 40-minute walk. That was really long. It was really hot that day. Um, People have told me that this is a tourist trap, that it's just like an overlooking thing of Tokyo. But I was tired and I wanted to check it out. So there are 2 tickets for the Tokyo Sky Dome. You get like the mid level and top level. I paid for the top level. It was 3,000 yen, so $22. That takes you all the way to the top. It takes you to the mid level. You get a tour there, and then it takes you to the top level. You get a tour there. They also give you like this headset that if whatever direction you pointing the thing at, you press like, hey, it says like on the wall, this is east. Press east on like this iPad, and it'll tell you like landmarks that are down below. I'm a big like architecture buff when it comes to stuff like that. If you ever go to like Chicago and take like the riverboat tours and they tell you about the architecture, I love that stuff. So that was kind of like a huge thing for me to like tell me about the architecture, the story behind what these buildings are that I'm looking at. Loved it. Um, Took about from I think I got there. I had to wait like 15 minutes for like my tour time. For about $22, it was like a 45-minute to an hour experience. I thought it was well worth it. Let me sit down as well. I was absolutely gassed. And then from the Tokyo Sky Tower, I took a train to the Tokyo Dome, which is in that area is like an amusement park, and then where they play baseball. So I wanted to go to a Japanese baseball game to see the Tokyo Giants. They're playing the Hiroshima like Carp, I think they were called. And man, Japanese baseball, so much fun. So they separate the teams, so it's like 75% the Tokyo fans. The Hiroshima fans are in like the left field corner. Whoever team is off the bat, they have like a whole cheering squad. So when Hiroshima was batting, the Tokyo fans sat down and then they cheered. And then when Tokyo was batting, they sat down and then everybody stood up and then they cheered. And I thought that was just like super fun. It was so energetic, just like so lively compared to like American baseball, which I feel like is way more casual and way more relaxing. This felt more like a football game than a baseball game. And so that was just an absolute blast. Tokyo won. I'm now a Tokyo Giants fan, and I would definitely recommend going to a Japanese style baseball game if you have the chance. I got lower level tickets. It was 4,600 yen, so it was like 30, 35, $36 for like 3 hours of entertainment. Beers were semi cheap. I think beers were like $7 compared to like going to a baseball game here is probably like 14. They accepted cards there, which was great. The beer girls, you don't go the beer if you want like beer, instead of like going up to the concession stand or having the people walk around, they have like beer girls, and they just run up and down all across. That was a hard ass job. Props to them, but um, really fun. By that time, after the baseball game ended, it was probably like 10:30. I went back to Akihabara, see if I could find like bars or something to go to. I did find a bar just outside of Akihabara. It was Back to the Future and Star Wars themed. And this was the second time where the bartender offered to give me free food if he could practice his English with me, because he was actually going to UC Davis in 4 months for school. I said, absolutely. So we had he has like Star Wars themed drinks. He has like all these different style drinks, and he fed me just food. And we talked for like 2 hours. Their bar closed at 1, so I stayed till about bar close. Said thank you, and then I called it a night. I'm not gonna lie. After about 2 weeks in Japan, I was absolutely gassed. I was ready to go home, and went back to my hotel room and called it a night. And then the last day, I had a 4:30 flight. I had to check out my hotel room at 10. So I had like 6.5 hours before my flight. Luckily, they have like lockers everywhere. I just threw my backpack in there. It cost like 500 yen. Just bopped around Akihabara and the surrounding areas for that day, just to see if I missed anything. I got some good food and stuff before I left, and I went back. Luckily, on my flight home, with the tailwind, instead of it being a 13.5 hour flight, it's something like a little over 11. So 2 hours made a huge difference. And that was my trip to Japan. So you made it this far. Hope you liked it. I talked my ass off. Oh, the things I would have done differently if, or when I go back, what I would do more. So first one I mentioned before, I like to spend more than like 6 hours in Kyoto. I feel like I barely scratched the surface of that city. I loved what I saw. I would also love to go back to Osaka and then maybe try out the different areas of Tokyo as well. But I really enjoyed Osaka. That was like my city, and then really experience more of Kyoto. I also would want to go to Yokohama, which is just south of central Tokyo. That's where the Gundam factory is, and you can see the life size Gundam. I really wish I would have gone. I feel like I had time. I think I just forgot. I was so caught up in the moment of just like walking around and finding different spots and different things to do. I didn't mention this before, but one of the things I would just do is like if there's like a tall mall building, they're everywhere. Malls are everywhere. I would just go in there and go on different levels and see what happens. And I actually ran into a like pop-up store for Tokyo Revengers while they were promoting the live action movie. So they had like the motorcycles and outfits that they were wearing in the live action movie like on display. So I just found like really cool stuff just like wandering and exploring and going into like different like malls and areas and seeing like what's there. And it made for a great experience. I would also want to travel north to like Sapporo, not during the winter, but get the full experience. But then also travel south. I think it'd been fun to maybe spend like 2 days in like Okinawa. You have to take I think you either take a ferry or a plane, but I would really like to check out Okinawa as well. I heard that's way more chill and casual and more Hawaii like. I heard it's very warm, so I'd love to have like a beach day or something like that. I don't think tickets are super expensive either. So if it's like $100 plane ticket each way, it's like $200. I would definitely. Yeah, and then honestly, just go back to some of the spots that I really like. Shibuya, highly recommended. Shinjuku. I'm sure there's other spots in Tokyo that I barely scratched the surface of, but just incredible experience. I loved it. Um, yeah, and it was like 5.5 days of group travel, and then like 7.5 days of solo travel. I would rather it be flipped. I had way more fun with my friends. I did like some aspects of solo traveling more just because I could do stuff on my time. But a lot of like the activities, like drinking and going out to eat, it's just better with company. So I do wish maybe next time I have like a bigger group that I'm going with. So that would just be a lot more fun. But yeah, loved it. Can't wait to go back. I think my plan is to go back in like 2 or 3 years. I also want to go to Seoul and Taiwan. So we'll see if I do those first. But man, I loved every second I was in Japan. It was great. And if you have any questions or like a first time, if it's your first time, this was my first time. I can give you my perspective. If you have any questions, leave a comment, join the Discord, DM me on Twitter, whatever. I will definitely answer it. But yeah, that was my trip to Japan. I hope you enjoyed what I talked about. If you want to support me or the podcast, feel free to subscribe, like, leave a review, follow us on whatever platform you're watching or listening to us on. If you're listening to this, we do have visual content on YouTube and Spotify, so check that out. But yeah, thank you so much. My throat is killing me because I talked for like an hour and 15 minutes straight. Thank you, and I hopefully see you around. Come check out our anime content if it's not just our Japan content. So I'll talk to you later. See ya.